This is Snakes and Otters, a pointless discussion of eternal questions. Get ready. We're about to live in your head rent-free. Hello, Otterites. This is episode 223. We are back here at Studio R.
I am Martin.
And I'm Robert.
I'm Francis.
And I'm Andre.
All right, gentlemen. It is the second Friday of the month.
Yes.
Or, excuse me, fourth Friday of the month.
Yes.
Second Friday was the old way we did things.
That's right, yes.
The second publishing Friday.
Second publishing Friday. Very good. So that means Code of Honor. Code of Honor. This is, honestly, this really is my favorite type of episode.
Well, it's one of our most popular downloads for sure, yeah.
And it's just one that I feel like it's where we get to spread our wings and practice our philosophical chops.
We're actually two guys short this time here.
We are,
too, yeah.
yes.
It's just that
Cajun is still on a pillaging episode there somewhere.
Yeah, in Jordan Con, down in Hotlanta.
The pirate that he is.
Yeah, I think he's coming. I don't think he's down there today. I think they're still continuing.
Yeah, there are sessions today. So.
Yeah, so he won't be back probably until tomorrow. I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure he's not flying out until
back.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, he's come back. Yeah. And the Imperator, we're still waiting for word on him. He had a health scare. We're trusting that he is doing well and okay, but we certainly send out our well wishes and blessings upon him and our prayers, of course, because he is the Imperator.
That's right. Blessed be his name.
Amen. That's right.
All right. So again, back here in the newly restored man cave at Studio R.
Yeah, I like this. Yes, of course.
I like it a lot, primarily because a studio photograph of Marina Sirtis is within my view.
Yes,
so that's a big plus.
Mrs. Robert, when she was down here, we had the tornado scare a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
we all had to come down to the basement. It's like, okay, fine. And she's sitting here on the couch, sitting where Francis is, and she's looking at the television, looks down and sees, and she sees, well, at least you put my picture above Marina Sirtis's.
That's true, because hers is on the shelf above that.
Yes,
You're very,
I may be a dummy, but I ain't no fool.
Well, I was going to say, yes, you should. Yes, that would be what we would call an amateur mistake.
Yes, that would be an amateur mistake.
Done that. That's correct.
Yes.
She's a darn pretty lady.
Yes. She is, yes. And then, of course, to the right of that is the picture of me with Marina Sirtis.
Oh, so it is. Yes, I see that there. Yes, I had forgotten.
Yes, that's when you and I went and saw her.
That is correct.
Right,
right.
Just a few months after our friend in Michigan and I went and saw her, and I got the black and white shot.
Right. Yes, because
yes.
And I want to say that was my very first con where I met one of the.
Yes, it was.
Yes,
Yes,
it was. Yeah,
yes.
And, having Marina Sirtis as my first was a.
Yes, I think that was the first creation con that had come to this area.
That's correct. That's right. And we hadn't yet had the opportunity. I think our friend in Michigan had seen DeForest Kelley.
Yes, we had seen DeForest Kelley together.
You had, but I
had
had
seen
not.
Sulu together.
Yes, and George Scott has come several times. We've seen him down here.
Yeah, and I think I got to see Marina Sirtis in Michigan at a con with you guys. Perhaps with you.
Yeah.
No, not with me, because I've only seen her the 2 times.
Are you sure it wasn't? Because we saw Kate Mulgrew and Terry Farrell one time. Were you there? For that
No.
one?
I have Marina Sirtis' autograph, I think, somewhere stashed in a bin.
Well,
and I believe it was from a con in Michigan, not here.
Well, that makes some sense.
That could be, because you went up for at least one con, didn't you?
I believe so.
Yeah. Because I know I didn't make it, but because I couldn't. But anyways, yes, we enjoy.
We must have went because
Marina Sirtis makes quite a rabbit hole.
Yes, she does.
Bring us back, Captain.
So, anyways, in Studio R, the restored Studio R, we have my history books and my fiction, my pictures underneath the television. We got my autographed or particular collected comics that were published the month I was born. Then my trades, trade paperbacks, they fill out the rest. And, of course, all my books on particular artists. It is Nerdvana down here.
All Renaissance men of affairs deserve a beautiful library.
40 boxes of comic books?
Yes, unfortunately, I'm going to be selling them. When I read, I don't take out the physical copies anymore. I generally read my digital copies. And, I can make some coin. Free up some cash flow, maybe take care of the deck that needs to get done. So, yeah. And my kids, they just aren't interested. One time I thought I would leave them to the kids, but they're not interested. So I'm,
So you need a dealer, essentially, right?
Well, I've put them up on Facebook Marketplace,
I did see that. I saw that. Yeah.
Yep.
And I've gotten some offers very close to what I've put out there, and I've got several people that are reviewing the list.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, that's positive. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's huge. I mean, there must be 24 people that have responded that I've sent.
Have you ever sold anything on Facebook Marketplace?
Oh yeah.
Okay, because a lot of times they'll say, "Yeah, I want it. I'll come by and get it. Hold it for me."
Yeah. Well, and I've told you I am not selling individual issues. If you want something, it has to be a large chunk. Like I'm not going to take out 50 issues in the middle of a 500 issue run, for instance, because that actually lowers the value of
Very
that
much so.
particular
Yeah,
run.
that's right. The completeness is what it is.
So we'll see how it goes. I'm a little sad at the thought of doing it, but on the other hand, I was buying new stuff for a while, but I just don't care for the stories
Is
being
the
done.
joy
nowadays.
in having or having experienced?
It really is in both when you're a collector, but I'm having less joy in the having
the experience, and
it's
then
time for them to go.
they're available in other formats.
Right.
So you don't. Yeah.
The collector in me is very sad. Like I was considering keeping the Fantastic Four, but I'm probably going to let that go too. The thing that bothers me there is I am 2 issues shy of having over 50 consecutive years of that title. And that's still, it's like, oh, I just want to get all of them. So, but again, I probably still wouldn't take them out of the box and read them. I'd read them digitally. So
this is why I don't really collect a whole lot of stuff.
you collect guns.
That doesn't count.
Right, because they're in
I
use.
can use those.
I knew that was where we were going on this. Yes.
So, anyways, but again,
but really, I don't actually have like collectible firearms.
right,
I really
right.
don't.
You don't,
No,
and
you
that's
just
true. I mean,
collect
even the
firearms.
pardon.
You don't have collectible firearms. You just collect firearms.
Yes, he just stocks up on them. Let's put
have-
it that way.
I foresee the possible need of all of them.
That's right. That's right. You just are dying to have that moment when somebody calls you up and says, "No, they're all being used."
A
They're all being
well-regarded militia.
That's right.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Amen, brother. Testify. All right. So, anyways, back to where we are. So, code of honor, and sometimes the guys will.
So that wasn't the quote what I just did?
No.
No.
That would be a great one, though. That'd be a great code of honor. Sometimes the guys, there we go. Sometimes the guys will let us know what the quote is ahead of time. I do not like doing that because I want the guys to be just like me, unprepared.
He even let that little quote slip in the show prep just because it's coming, guys.
It is. Well, I am the king of showing up with what are we doing today? And winging it. But that's my style.
But your winging it is often superior to preparation anyway.
Yes,
When you have a Library of Congress between your earlobes, it's easy to do that.
You have the intellect to synthesize.
I like to think that in my role as the hammer, I dig deep into those pointless or those eternal questions we have. The pointless.
You stand on semis and sue insurance companies?
If I could, yes, because that's where the money is. Anyways, because that's who you sue. People with deep pockets. You never sue poor people. They don't have any money.
Well, yeah, that goes all the way back to Bloom County. Come on.
That's right. All right. So, and actually, this quote kind of ties it. You could tie it into the Second Amendment there.
All right.
So, this is from the section of On Government and Politics of my book of the Most Inspiring Things Ever Said.
Okay.
And this is by Clarence Darrow.
Okay, we've not featured him before.
Yeah. I mean,
Good. Oh, that's a wonderful reaction.
It sounds like a cramp.
I know, listeners, this is audio only, but Martin's face resembled somebody with a slight degree of constipation there for a moment.
Well, if we weren't using nom de pods,
Yes.
I've got the setup. I could record, and we could do video.
we do video. Yes, yes. Oh.
Hey, there's a reason people have told me I have a face for radio.
Exactly.
I put aside some cameras. There's possibilities.
Well, I got some lapel mics recently. I feel like could do one-on-one interview kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
All right, so here it is. Clarence Darrow. True patriotism hates injustice in its own land more than anywhere else.
Ooh, okay. True injustice.
No.
True
True
patriotism.
patriotism.
True patriotism.
Hates injustice in its own land more than anywhere.
But elsewhere
else.
is okay.
No. I think the
No.
implication is that it hates it anywhere, but just more so here at home.
Well, if you hate it more here, then it's more okay there.
Or less not okay there.
So are we saying then that patriotism is by its nature parochial?
Well, yeah, I think
By
that's-
definition.
By
yeah.
definition, yeah.
But is this not a bit of a slam against that?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
I mean, we don't know Darrow's mind, of course,
Yeah.
but I'm just curious.
So I will go into why I chose it.
Yeah, in other words, if injustice, and I understand feathering one's own nest and only seeing as far as your eyes can see and all that stuff, but in the philosophical arena of injustice, should not we be just as angry, incensed, motivated, desirous of justice everywhere than just our own? Is that what Darrow is trying to say here?
That's how I read it.
Well,
But in his defense, which is not somewhere I thought I'd be, you got to
Good quote, though,
You
for
got to
that.
fix home first.
yes.
You can't take on you can't take on the world without fixing your own house.
Well,
I mean-
you can fix injustice in your own house and still not like it elsewhere.
True, but
And,
you got to be here first. I mean,
Yeah. And I think
like
that's the whole
PJ
point.
O'Rourke says,
So-
it's one thing to burn down the outhouse; it's another to install plumbing. Well, start with plumbing where the first leak is, and then keep going.
Right. Yeah. Don't burn down the shitter before you got the plumbing.
I would understand that it's easiest to take care of your own house first, of course, by nature. But I do not see that as necessarily being an ordinal. In other words, you don't
Right?
have to do
I don't
the
think
first.
it's an either or.
Yeah,
And I don't think Darrow's saying it's an either or here.
yeah.
He's saying, get your own house in order. And I think Reagan, to put it in something we would.
Yes, there are a
have more
couple of Reagan
appeal
quotes
to-
that were similar to this. in
Yeah,
the book,
it's other for Reagan as he grows up, again he starts kind of on the left a little bit. He's a Roosevelt Democrat.
Right. Born in 1912, I think it was.
Yes,
Yes.
1911.
1911. Okay.
February 6, 1911. For him, though, as he looks out with his good Midwestern common sense and sees racism, he's like, guys, this weakens us. We're
Truth.
criticizing, the outside world. We're criticizing totalitarianism. We're criticizing the Soviet Union.
Yes.
But we have this thing in our pocket of we don't even treat our own citizens right.
Yep.
And we deny them basic citizenship rights. This is a weakness. This is a thing that isn't right. That gives our enemies this inroad to ignore us. To say, well, you guys we don't even want to hear what you've got to say.
And it's an exploitable weakness both internally
Absolutely,
and externally.
Absolutely. And he
but
really
that's
felt
not-
like our adversaries did. They
Oh, yes.
exploited that weakness to say we don't want to listen to Americans. Well, they don't even, they don't,
They don't
even
believe what
treat
they
for-
say.
Yeah, they don't believe what they say. They're full of crap.
Well, in the 30s, obviously none of us lived through that. Although sometimes it feels like Martin's that old.
He's Connor McLeod of the Clan McLeod.
Yes.
Born in 1518 in the village of Glenfinnan on the shores of Loch Shiel.
And there we go. This is not Scottish. It's
This is my
class.
second one already.
Yeah.
But in the 1930s, though, there was a very real possibility that the Communist Party could have become a real
An
party.
actual political force in the
a
U.S.
national
Yeah.
force.
Yeah. There was because it was the midst of the Great Depression, so of course, socialism in any form would have looked good. That's why socialism became National Socialism in Germany.
Right. I mean,
Some would
whatever
argue
you're
that it's
suffering
now
through.
a party.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
But anyways, I don't think that Darrow is saying that it's either or. Definitely, because I think the quote implies, and I think the word, even beyond what, even if he didn't mean this, to me, the word injustice absolutely means that if you truly believe in right and wrong, what is just and versus what is not just, you have to hate all injustice. Because to your point, Andre, is it really okay somewhere else as long as it's not happening here? Well,
for a great many people, that would be a truth.
That would be a truth,
and that's what he's railing against.
And in some sense, in a practical sense, in a real world, what can I do about it? Yeah, that's true, because there, you can only do so much in the immediate surroundings. Because, to Martin's point, how can you export your values? Because that's essentially what we say we do when we go meddle in other places. But realistically, how can you export your own values if you don't take care of them at home?
If they are fatally flawed?
Well, if they're just not properly executed, if they're not lived up to, if they're not lived. Andre,
can you reread the quote one time? Because I think there's a key thing to take away from here.
True patriotism hates injustice in its own land more than anywhere else.
I think the key there in hates. When we look at injustice, our ability to act upon it is irrelevant.
Okay.
Do we detest it for the injustice that it is?
Yeah.
Slavery is still practiced in parts of this world. We were talking about the injustice of the 1930s when African Americans were not treated as equally.
Yeah, not just the 1930s. Yes,
that was our topic of.
But that was the time period we were talking. Yes,
our ability to change that in another part of the world, not here, we should still equally detest it.
Absolutely,
absolutely. That's kind of where I'm going. I'm kind of pushing back against what Martin was saying, because your example, while it's completely valid, it is a particular example. This seems to me, the quotation anyway, is far broader and more universalist than any particular instance.
I think it has both. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, because he is saying you got to hate what's screwed up at home first to be a patriot, and then you still hate what's screwed up in Saudi Arabia or whatever, but fix it here first.
Well, he's not even saying anything about the fixing it part, but yes, I think that is implied.
Yeah, it's implied. I think the active word here, and I like where Andre went with hates, but I think in many respects the active word here is patriotism.
I was going there.
Yep.
That's
okay.
That's where because that does not imply that it is right or necessarily wrong. It simply is.
Well,
and it is connected. This is endemic to the patriotism in itself.
Yes, and I think we need to clarify the term too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because,
very much so. What is it?
As my former pastor likes to point out, patriotism is love of country.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Being a nationalist is thinking your country is better than anybody else, no matter what.
This quote might also be a direct refute of the word patriot, to be a true patriot, because if you think everything is wrong here, but it's okay there, patriot becomes a bad word.
It would.
Yes, in many ways, yes.
I mean, you get into this my country right or wrong.
And that's nationalism.
That's exactly what you're saying. That's nationalism, but it often attempts to co-opt or that term of patriotism.
It does
will cloak itself as being patriotic. And I think that's what Darrow might be getting at.
Exactly. I think so too.
He's trying to differentiate between patriotism as a good.
Because if you hate the injustice here, that's the important. It's the two things:
patriotism versus nationalism. Yeah, and do we have a date for this?
Unfortunately, no.
I like.
Well, I mean, it's the first half of the 20th century.
It would be the 20s or somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I guess from my perspective, this is after Theodore Roosevelt, but before Adolf Hitler. and somewhat around the time of Lenin and the early Stalin, because all I think that matters. I think that's probably the
Oh
context.
yeah, I mean,
He's
yeah,
pulling from those things.
his milieu. I mean, and certainly.
There you go. Yeah, gotta say it. Yeah, gotta hit the button.
Word boner.
Yeah, you
Well,
deserve
and
it.
I had a couple last episode we didn't hit them there.
Oh,
What did I
Are we retroactivating the?
what
Go
did
ahead.
I had
Retroactive boners.
word.
That might just deserve one of its own.
I think we'll just keep moving at that point.
Yeah.
So if you can reuse them, we'll recognize them.
Yeah,
But
I had
milieu is
something
always
good
a good one. Yeah.
Last episode, and we didn't button it.
Well, go back to your milieu though, because you were talking.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're right. His moment again is this idea of where do we stand. Darrow's claim to fame is, of course, First Amendment,
Right.
defending the teaching of evolution versus
Scope's
creationism
monkey trial.
and the monkey trial.
Yeah.
So I mean, his mindset is, people are being punished for telling the truth, what they perceive as the truth.
And he was
And
certainly a
that's to
crusader.
him. That's the injustice. Yeah.
Is it fair enough to say? And of course, we don't really know, and I maybe I'll get a chance to look it up before we finish or not. But is it fair to say this is probably a pre-World War I argument he's making? The reason I say that is because in the 19 teens, from the time, basically, essentially during Woodrow Wilson's 2 terms, the concept of we don't give a rat's ass about what goes on over there is at the height of our national consciousness. We are all about we don't care what happens over there in
But
Europe.
that only starts in 1914.
Well, I understand, and that's
Yeah.
kind of why I'm asking when he says this, but then again, it was so prevalent at that time.
But
There was general pushback with regards to the Great White Fleet and things like that. This America coming onto the world stage, there were many who were opposed to that.
right,
The
but,
old isolationism from the previous times.
No,
you don't think so?
I think you're headed in a direction that's not
valid.
that's not a Darrow direction. Again,
Well, and-
he's concerned about First Amendment issues here.
well, and
He's like,
also
let's not worry about fixing crap.
Well,
Treaty of Versailles or any of that 20
isn't
stuff.
that kind of the point, though?
He's wanting to fix what's going on
well,
here.
but I think your premise for it is flawed
Okay, enlighten me.
because there's a difference between isolationism and
Yeah.
we don't want to get involved in what is absolutely strictly 100% a European war.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, it is a European continental war. I mean, obviously there's spillover, but I mean, essentially,
it was their freaking issues
right.
and their inability to freaking get along.
But that's different than I think the injustice.
And the
Okay,
Russians
there's-
started World War I, by the way, not the Germans.
The fact of
That's right, because he was he was a Slav.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because you're right.
Andre, that's been a 200 episode argument that we've been having.
I can tell.
Well, I think you're when you put it in that phrase and you emphasize the word injustice.
Yeah,
Yes.
people weren't arguing about injustice; they just didn't want to go to war.
Right. Okay. So isolationism, territorialism, and even protectionism were not as part of this argument. Darrow is not thinking that way.
No, I don't think so.
That's what we're postulating here, because he predates much of World War I anyway, if I recall correctly. I mean, you probably know him better.
don't know.
than
I mean, the
Martin.
trial's in the 20s, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I
Yeah,
thought the trials were earlier than that. But you guys keep talking. I'll check it out.
Yeah.
I was thinking 1920s, but I
he-
could be wrong.
I thought it was 19.
Well, I think there was an argument earlier whether or not his intention was one thing or another. As we're reading the quote, the truth, regardless of his intention, comes out that if we ignore injustice anywhere, we ignore injustice here.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid piece of it. Is
1925 was the Scopes monkey trial. So you guys are absolutely right.
Yeah.
This is probably a post World War I argument then, which I'm kind of submitting for the panel of us to say. The coloring of nationalism, excuse me, of isolationism, has to run through this thread somewhere.
I think so. Yeah.
Well, in the sense that, we're separated by 2 oceans. There's not instantaneous communication and all that.
And we've got all these dead men.
And yeah,
1925. that still is much in
Well,
our consciousness.
And also, but you also have to remember, if it's again, well, that's the Scopes monkey trial. We don't know when this was.
We don't know this was made, but that's.
But let's assume 1920s ish.
Yeah, Darrow is in his ascendancy at this
So
point. He is still a young man, still a force.
Whatever, yeah. But so, in the context of the 1920s, then yeah, America is not going to care about what's going on. But it's not because they're not, trying to stay out of anything, because again, there's no war to stay out of.
Right.
It's not so much an isolation. It's boom times.
Right. Yeah.
So
and we're still a little xenophobic as a nation after World War I and before.
Very much.
Well, I mean, just about all nations. And when you think about it, all nations are kind of xenophobic. I mean, realistic.
Well, the hatreds from that First World War are still very much alive in the collective consciousness.
But people aren't going to be worried, I think, about. So I mean, you could probably make the argument that if it's the 1920s when he does say this, that he's saying, look, you guys are partying and having a good time, and things are still going to hell in France and Germany and England and everywhere else.
That's their problem.
And you're not doing anything. You're not worried about it.
This is a Treaty of Paris, a Treaty of Versailles attitude.
Possibly.
There is one other piece of this that could be going on too. That's going to be, I think, a huge part of what's foremost in his mind is, yes, the 20s are a time of American ascendancy and American economic good times. But it's also a time of a resurgent Klan.
Yes.
You think
where the Klan's a political factor?
Oh, it's a force.
Oh, yes. The lost cause myth is really becoming cemented.
We've done a lot of talk about that here,
yes.
but I'm glad you kind of went there because that would show, and I know you don't want to give Darrow this anointing that I'm about to give him.
But he is a crusader against that.
Well, yeah, very much so. Yeah, and this is in a pre-FDR era, so we're thinking things like this. By the time 29 hits, and we're worried about surviving. We don't think about that.
I don't want to give them too much because again, they're not influencing Coolidge. He's standing against them.
It just so happens, though.
But they are a political force. There is some areas where they do influence House and Senate races somewhat.
Well, there are forces, especially in the South, but we forget, the stories come in of if you don't take off your hats to the Klan when they're parading in your town, you can get beat up. And this is in Ohio. Where these
in Indiana, Ohio, Midwest, South.
Yeah, it is.
The Klan is a force that influences elections. And, I don't want to, down our guy Coolidge because I do think he was not influenced by them, but it is a force in American public life.
Is it fair to say? And I know this is a stretch, but let's just postulate for a second. That was one of the things he had in mind when he made this statement.
I think so. I think
Martin, as usual, zeroed right in. You're seeing he's talking about the Klan,
right? I mean, his life in Tennessee is he's. Again, the monkey trial it's a First Amendment issue. We're ignoring science and reality in order to protect spirituality that people read, and it just people read too much into.
People are controlled by.
Not
necessarily isn't, but that's his argument.
I don't know Darrow well enough to say he's like, forget about what you're reading in your Bible.
No, he couldn't have gotten away with that attitude.
Yeah. So I think he's like, hey guys, that's all cool, but every once in a while we advance in science, and we need to be able to talk about that. We need to be able to tell our kids that in school.
Andre?
I was going to say, I think your analysis is correct, but your application might not be. If we hate the injustice of the Klan here, but what's he talking about somewhere else? So I'm not sure it's necessarily about the Klan.
Well, no, I think that there. I don't think he's necessarily making a 1-to-1 that if you hate racism elsewhere, you have to hate racism here. I think it's if you hate any injustice, if you're calling out an injustice somewhere, it's like if you're saying, look, the Russians are starving people in the midst of their collectivization.
Yeah.
And yet
Robert's on it.
We're over here, burning crosses in black families' yards and and hanging them, hanging black men from a tree. How can you call that out when this very close to home, far more personal injustice?
Robert's very much on the crux of it. Very much
no
on
pun intended.
It's like it's not that we're ignoring what Soviet collectivization is, or what else might be happening in Europe and that, but we've got to start here.
Well, I think what we've done here is we've identified, at least in our minds, that Darrow is talking about something specific in both cases. He's talking about a evil at home, which we're postulating as the Klan, versus a unaddressed evil elsewhere, which we're postulating as Stalinism.
Right, and I'm sure the newspapers of the day, which is where it would have been argued out, would have been full of polemics both for and against.
Right. I mean, he would have been railing against the idea of a newspaper article that's condemning Stalinism, but turns a blind eye to a denial of truth here at home. Oh, and by the way, my word from the last episode was ignominious.
Oh,
yeah, he deserves that. Yes.
Word boner.
Yes. It's a very good word.
Yes, ignominious is good. Yeah. I did throw out pathos. But you missed it. Did you?
You deserve that one. Yes, give that one.
Well, all right. Well.
Word boner.
Yeah.
I threw that one out specifically for you last time.
That's true, because that's a Martinism, I think.
Yes, that's one of Martin's
one of your favorite words. Yes,
hubris and pathos. Yes.
Yes, those are
we
both
use those fairly frequently. Yeah.
So
you can't say hubris without kind of stretching the ooh.
Oh, you
like it's a trombone.
I almost put a W after the H. Hubris.
I never do that. To me, I never pronounce it that way. It's always Hugh, as in.
That's because you're from Central Kentucky.
Well, that's correct.
Hubris.
As in the almost Borg. I bet you were wondering where Star Trek was going to come in on this.
No, we just sit here dreading. Expecting it. All right.
Are we at a good stopping point?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. I got my finger on the button.
That's right.
Bourbon break.
Oh, yeah.
All right, gentlemen.
Can I start this bourbon break real quick? Brother Andre, that was awesome. You did a great job right there. I appreciate the hubris and jumping right in. It was terrific. You did great.
You really, really love your contributions.
You're very much in the spirit of what we're doing here.
Yeah, because so often the time we've been doing this for freaking 200 episodes now. So I know you're kind of late.
You've been moved by the otter spirit.
As I was introduced to this group, I became fascinated with the discussion, and I'm like, I could hang out, have a bourbon, and talk with these guys like they're my best friends. And
that's right.
Here I am.
Actually,
here you are. Well, actually, here we are. That's exactly right.
Yes. Half of the crew were true friends.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And I still bemoan the fact that the Imperator and Cajun are not with us, because we would go longer, but I would love to hear their thing on that. So
I think Cajun would have some very particular
I know,
interesting
absolutely, yeah,
points.
very much so. I would love to hear that.
I don't think they would be all so kind.
Oh no!
Well, I mean, Martin is very clear in his, shall we say, disdain for Clarence Darrow.
I just don't know enough, but
that's never stops you, though.
What I do know, it's like maybe he was a crusader too far.
Right.
Maybe took a few
slid into
steps.
kook territory.
Well, I don't know about that, but I mean,
hardcore leftist territory.
You are naturally suspicious of social crusaders.
Oh yeah,
and that's
that's fair. I mean, I
fair.
think any crusader, corporate crusader, social crusader, I don't care. You should be naturally suspicious to a certain degree.
For those that wish to tear something down, which by definition in some cases, most cases, That's what
Yes, I
Crusader
mean
would be.
that's my
I'm-
number one thing is
Yeah, I see. I knew
you
you.
can't.
I knew that's what you
Again,
meant.
that's
Why
my
you don't like them?
my mode of living is it's one thing to burn down the shit house, it's another to install plumbing.
I'm
As a
more-
matter of cosmic history, it is easier to destroy than to create.
I'm more
Yes.
worried about people destroy without wishing to rebuild. But you
Exactly.
also have to be cautious of those who do wish to rebuild. What are they going to build?
What are they
Well,
going
yeah,
to build?
Absolutely.
because
But
many of
those
them
who are
have.
just wanting to tear down, it's just destruction.
Well, the Genesis device is by definition something that creates something on its own, and how it is structured deserves some scrutiny, because that's what you're talking about here. It's because when you can do both at the same time, what are you building in the place of?
Planet
You
Killer.
green-blooded bastard! We're talking universal Armageddon.
That's
I
right.
thought we were talking bourbon.
You must govern
Exactly.
your passions, doctor. They will be your undoing.
Oh, you were doing it so well. We're in. I know, Demi.
Bourbon break.
We've never done this before. We've never overridden our own bourbon break. Okay. He
All right,
had to
Brother
raise-
Andre, would you please start off bourbon break?
Indeed, I am enjoying purloined Weller's, I believe, Green Label.
Right, that's the special reserve.
Yeah, I heard it spoke of highly, and I decided to try it. And delightful is the first.
This
word.
is your first experience with it, am I right?
Yes, so it is a wheated bourbon, and I was mentioning as we were pouring these, in the past, had I heard the word wheated, it would have been pushed aside, thinking it was not a quality bourbon.
Really?
And it was my ignorance. It wasn't anything
Well, I mean,
else.
That's fair.
We're
That's
all
fair.
learning, believe me, and we're by no means experts. But
And
the more we learn, the more we go, and
Yep.
we get better and better.
The sweetness of it, the caramel flavoring sits on the tongue well. But as I mentioned as we were preparing, it's amazing how one sip of the same ethyl alcohol warms the body in a different way. This one I feel in my belly, and
Yep.
Oh, which is very different than the last thing that you had.
oh yeah, it
I
was
remember
all the last one that we discussed was all in the mouth. This one fills the chest and the belly, and
Is
See,
that
and that's
something?
the effect I love the most in a
Yeah.
bourbon, because I feel like it's a full body experience.
there's sometimes I just want that sinus ripping burn, but
Well, the last one you had was kind of like that way because you said it was highly peppered and licorice, and it seems almost harsh the way you described it anyway.
unbloomed it was.
Yeah.
And I wasn't looking for that at that moment in time, but there's sometimes where you're just rared up and you just want to
Well,
feel
sometimes
it.
you want the quote unquote rot gut.
Yeah.
Just kind of blow
Well,
at
yeah,
it.
that's why I said that the Jim Beam Devil's Cut is a great change of pace.
That's right. That's one that we found that was that way. I remember
Yes.
that.
Again, it's another one that is best bloomed, but it's got a punch.
Because I don't think that when the last time, it's been a long time since I've had that. That was one of our early
Yes.
explorations, and I want to say I had it neat, and yeah, it'd clean your clock.
Well, sometimes you like when you want spicy food, you want that burn to
Exactly.
Yeah, you want the jalapenos.
But you're right. Weller is very smooth.
smooth.
It's not
and,
that, yeah.
It's a higher price point than I would normally call a comfort bourbon, but for a Weller, it's the lowest price point you'll find. So, but it's right in that same category. It's
It's a $50 bourbon. Am I right?
well, that's what I paid for it. Supposedly, you're supposed to get it for less, but I've never seen it but the one place.
Yeah,
And
that's
I-
why I picked it
It's
up.
hard to find. There's no question, and
Yeah.
we've talked a lot about. I say the injustice of that whole secondary market.
Yes.
Yeah, and I rail against the concept of bourbon being a
Rich
a
man's
rich
sport.
man's
Yes.
prerogative. F that and the horse it rode in on Bill Shatner. Thank you very much.
Yes, the problem I have with it is not the secondary market; it is those that gather it all up and hoard it, driving the price up for the rest of us.
Mhm.
If
It's
you're
those
not
who
going to
tear-
drink it, bourbon's not a collectible.
Yeah.
Drink it.
Exactly.
Drink
Yeah.
it.
Even the signed bottles that we have, I have
I
3,
plan to drink mine.
and I will drink mine.
You just drink the good stuff and then pour rot gut in it and put the lid back
Well,
on.
Mrs. Roberts' paternal grandfather used to do that. He would get really low end bourbon and pour it into a better bottle. Now, that better bottle he was pouring, it still wasn't a real high end,
Yeah.
but it was better than the stuff that he was.
Well, I admire
Transferring.
his tactical genius in redirecting the battle against his foes. I will honor him for that.
Yes.
because
One
that is
last
very-
comment as I close out my analysis. This is the first bourbon that I've ever had. I couldn't tell a large difference between bloomed and unbloomed.
Yes, it has very very
Oh,
consistent
what's
taste.
the proof on that one again?
That's around 90.
90.
Yeah, so it's not hugely high. You can get away with that with the lower proof bourbons.
But still, it has good flavor.
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
definitely.
It's not necessarily super complex.
I have not had that green label Weller that I recall, so I'm kind of living.
I'm anxious to try it as well.
I'm living
Yeah.
vicariously through you guys here
Yeah.
on that.
It's a fun bourbon.
Yeah, I've had the black label and I enjoyed it very, very much.
Yes.
So maybe next time I'll have to make
Yeah,
sure.
and again, the red label goes back years and years. I had a bottle of Antique 107 ages ago.
Well, see, that's what my
was
father
good.
kept. It was the antique bottle with the train on it. He kept the big bottle of antique in the upstairs in the cabinet where we kids couldn't reach it. But my grandfather would always, every time he just kind of opened the door, he'd come right on in. He'd go right to the cabinet, pull down the bottle, reach into the other thing, pull down a glass, and just have him one. He knew where we kept it. It was just a thing. That's one of my memories.
Antique 107.
Yes. So, Francis, what are you drinking?
I have I'm of course drinking Robert's bourbon again, as we all are here at Studio R.
Which is what it's there for.
Yeah, that's right. I decided to do something different. I went with the Wild Turkey Rare Breed.
Yes.
I have not had that on the show. I don't know if the rest of us have.
I
don't think so.
No, I
don't
think I
think
acquired
so.
this after the last time we recorded.
And I want to say that I have tried it at Cajun's house, but not at
quite
a time.
possibly, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know I've tried it out there. This is the one that
Out in the Holy
supposedly
Land.
was. I think McConaughey really got into this one before they came up with Long Branch, which is kind of the one he
Oh.
worked with. I
Yes,
want to say
yes.
this is the one that he kind of gravitated towards, although he was kind of a spokesman for all the Wild Turkey brand. This dog hunts.
Yes.
Talk
Good,
like my Nelson
good.
County roots.
It's got legs.
It has got legs. It really does. This is, and I'm showing my bias here. This is sweet, and I mean physically, tastefully sweet.
And it's a 116.8 proof.
Wow.
To
Now-
get that sweetness that quickly is, I think, a very interesting hallmark, because a lot of times that higher proof, it's going to hit you in your mouth and with the burn,
That's right.
and it's going to overpower you, or it's going to have a really. I find sometimes a lot of the higher proof ones will have a really bad charcoal taste at first.
Yeah, they really whack
But
you in
this
the
is-
nose, but this has none of that. Now, by the
It'll
ti-
knock you for a loop, though. It's
It-
116.
that's
proof.
right. Well, I've got it fully bloomed.
That'll
I
put
had
hair on your
we used the
nipples.
spherical ice. I had about almost half of the original of that.
Oh, you didn't
left.
get a new one?
I didn't get a new one. I
Ah.
kept the one I had, but it was it's still intact. It is no longer, so that kind of tells you how it's bloomed out. But and 'cause it's even losing a little bit of its chill. But dang gone, this is good stuff. I've been a fan of Wild Turkey a lot. That of
Yes.
Basil Hayden are kind of my two go-tos.
And Old Foresters.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But this one, Wild Turkey's stock just went up about 20 points.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is good.
Daggone good.
So now I have two I need to try. Then.
You must try this, because Martin, you have, I think, the most developed taste buds of all of us here, and I'd be very interested in hearing what your thoughts are on that. But I'm always looking, like Andre said, I'm looking for that one. What's my next purchase? All the rest of my ideas have just kind of flown off the shelf. This is next.
Oh, all right.
A Rare Breed is such.
That is as close to imprimatur as you will get.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, now
Imprimatur. Get us a
Oh,
button.
yeah. Good point. Good point. Yes.
Word boner.
that's a very Catholic word.
Yes. Good. Yes. Very Catholic.
Uh,
Love
my
it.
intent. I mean, this does not alter the. I'm still looking for Old Forester 1924.
Yes.
That doesn't
So-
change that, because that's its own thing.
You should be able to find this very easily. I
Yeah.
picked this up at Kroger around the corner.
Yeah.
And I think I paid 57 for it. 56
Oh,
maybe.
That's perfect.
yeah.
Yeah,
Rare
I mean-
breed's not hard to come by.
Good.
No,
'Cause I
it
have the
is-
Wild Turkey, the regular, the 84 proof.
Yep.
I have the 101, which has, believe it or not, Mrs. Francis enjoys that Wild Turkey.
Well, I remember
101.
we had that on the show, and we all really liked
Yeah,
it.
it's still one of the very best. But
Yeah.
Wild Turkey they've never missed a pitch. They've never missed one. Every single time, it's always
Sports analogy.
Absolutely, it is always a grand slam, if not a home run. So this one here, that is
Grand
not-
Slam is a home run, but yes, I know what you mean.
Well,
Other way around, Chief.
You can have a grand slam that's not a home run, guys.
No, you can't.
No, you
No,
can't.
you can't.
No, you can't.
All right, whatever.
It's a home run with bases loaded.
Yeah.
Fine. Whatever. I've had a few of these.
Okay,
so
Sheldon.
Thank you very much.
So, anyways, very much a thumbs up on the rare.
Okay.
That is correct.
Rare
I
breed.
pass the baton. Robertus,
All right, so
it's up to you.
I have pulled out my 1792 foolproof. 1792 has I don't know, I would call it exploded with new versions this year,
it's a very reliable brand.
but
But some
I
new
was-
lines, some new
Yeah.
expressions. That's what they call them.
expressions, yes.
It's a Barton brand that
Expressions.
is done. That
So,
1792.
This one is the full proof. It's 125 proof. They've also got a single barrel out, and they've got what is the other one? There's another one. The regular one that we buy that I've always called one of my comfort bourbons is a small batch.
right.
Now,
Did you say 125 proof? on this bad boy?
125.
Is that the highest we've ever
Douglas.
had on the show? I think it is.
No.
Because
Didn't we have a 130 somewhere?
not that I can recall. I mean, I do know we did the Old Granddad. No, that was 114. We did
Old
14.
Granddad 114. Yeah.
But we have, but the Prohibition style Old Forester was 120 proof, and I know there's another 120 proof out there that we've done. But I can't remember what it is.
One of the Monks Road, I think.
That sounds right, but I don't think.
the Monks Road, not the 5th District series, but the other one.
But I don't think we've ever gone this high. I really don't. Now.
Maybe not. So, anyways,
so you are at the pinnacle, sir.
yes.
Enlighten us.
So it is very much still 1792. I think it is identifiable as 1792.
Okay. All right. That's a positive.
And I think that's a positive
Yeah.
because I mean, that's one of our earliest bourbons. that we
It
started
is. It
drinking. Yeah.
is.
And that was a
That's a
staple.
fine bourbon.
It is.
It's one of my earliest that I've done in my modern time because my sister's wedding. Of course, my mother worked for Barton's at the time.
Well, it's
We
inexpensive.
bought cases of that stuff.
Yeah.
Did you guys may have even gotten bottles from
We
left
may
over
have.
from that?
But I
seem to
mean, it's
recall.
inexpensive, and as a blended bourbon, it will be a very consistent taste, generally speaking, because they're blending to get that consistent taste.
I didn't realize that 1792 was a blended bourbon.
Well, the small batches.
Small. Okay.
Yeah, generally the small batches are blended, not always,
Okay.
but that's kind of the whole point. Now, and of course, single barrel is always a single barrel.
Well,
There's
yeah,
no
that's right,
blending
yeah.
there. The full proof
And it may vary.
could be blended. I don't know, because you could take two barrels, blend them together, and then dilute them if necessary
Good idea, Lord.
to the 125. But anyways, this has got a. Let me take another sip here.
Oh yes. Primary data, folks. We always like to have plenty of that.
So, it's granted it's pretty well diluted now.
Well,
and
most of
it's
your
blended.
ice seems to be still intact there, though.
Yes, but still, we're getting to the point where we're getting far, because I mean, you look at the color.
It does, but my God, it's 125 proof.
It's 125 proof, so yeah, there's still a lot of flavor. There's a lot of flavor in this. You get a very much that caramel sweetness up
Okay.
front. It's not super complex with lots of different notes to me. Now there may be lots of different notes there, but I'd probably have to have more of it
quicker.
neat
Yeah,
and
neat,
quicker
yeah.
to really
I can
pull
see that.
those out. It's hard to do that when we're doing the show, because by the time we get to the bourbon break, sometimes the ice is melted too much to where
One of these days we should not pour until the bourbon break, just to kind of give it a little.
or
point
a
of
few minutes
context.
before.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's an
I think-
excellent idea,
Yeah,
Francis.
we should really do that.
Good idea, Lord.
Of course, it's a good idea.
Yes.
Because especially when we're doing stuff we've already done.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
because some of them we messed with neat, but I'm like I've told you guys, I get a headache if the proof's too high and I'm doing it neat. It's
That's
just,
called a hangover.
on the front side. Yes, exactly. As I drink it, I create the hangover at the same
Yes.
time. Yeah,
But anyways,
I'm just a newbie.
it is. Well, we all are
Yeah.
compared to many. But anyways, it's a higher proof, higher flavor, I think, than the regular 1792.
Well, I'm interested in. I might have to
but-
try that next time.
It's definitely got a warmth both in the mouth and in the chest. It's very subtle, so it's
Okay.
got a little bit of a kiss and a hug,
That's a positive for you,
and that's a
correct?
positive.
Yeah, that's
yes.
what I thought. Yeah.
But it's not so. Now it's more intense than like the Weller hug, because it's
Well,
125
I should
proof.
say it's a higher proof. That's right.
But it's
exactly.
not one that makes me feel like some bourbons, especially if you get them closer to neat than blended or than bloomed. It almost leaves you with a bad taste in your mouth.
Prohibition style is kind of my benchmark on that, Old Forester, because it's one of the only bourbons that I did have when the first time I had it neat. I got a bloody headache the
Right,
next day. but it did not alter my experience of. It was a pleasant experience.
Right.
I just didn't expect it to keep the gift to be the gift that keeps
Right.
giving.
Well, you know that ethanol it's going to drive the oxygen out.
Well, that's
what's going to, and that's what causes your headache.
But I know Martin's over there kind of.
No, I just waiting my turn.
Well, I know, but you're so patient.
But anyways,
man, dude.
I highly recommend if you can get the 1792 foolproof. I forget what I paid for, but I got it at the Kroger's here. But it's hard to find.
Oh, is it really? Okay.
It is hard to find.
Yeah.
If
Well,
you
see-
can, it's not super expensive though.
Well, I will say
I think I want to say it was like $50.
I will say this to the if anybody from Barton Brands is listening, it looks
We'll be more than happy to take a case.
That's right. It's bloody. Looks the same. The
Yes.
bottle looks the same.
They're all the same.
That is to me a fallacy.
It's a detriment to their
It is
marketing.
Absolutely, marketing. It is a detriment. That does
Well-
not mean you have to give up the look because it is a unique bottle. 1792 is a very unique bottle. But why, for God's sakes, why can't you make it somehow differentiatable?
because the bottle is unique. When you see that bottle, you know it's a 1792.
And I
Yeah,
understand.
but if I'm looking for the small batch, I'm not buying that because I think it's 1792 regular.
Well, I mean, see, there's
Well,
that.
no, the small batch is the regular.
Oh,
There is
Yeah.
that tension that we have here. Is how different do you want to be if you have a line extension?
Right, because you look at the different Woodfords.
Well, that's correct. Well, I mean, for example,
Now the double oaked is
double
different.
oak is a different shaped bottle completely.
Right.
but
Well, it's not
It
completely
has
different.
printing on it. It says
It has-
double oaked. It's
Yes.
easily read.
But I mean, well, I
Well,
mean, this is
it
easily
is
read,
more prominent.
foolproof.
You're correct, but
I mean-
looking at this bad boy, I would because I saw the two of them on his shelf up there.
Well, you see, now they're angled too.
They're angled, and the light wasn't great, and
No.
my eyes are not great. But I did not realize I thought he had two bottles of the same.
Right.
And to me, if I were the marketing department at Barton Brands, I would say fail. You just
Interesting.
diluted your brand because you should be.
It's the only
You should be
differentiation is like a different color on the label.
A
And I don't
different
think
color
it's even
ink
that.
or a different
Yeah.
cap.
No, yeah,
The
it's
neck
not-
band is two
it is-
different colors.
And I
That's
didn't
all.
pick that up, so to me, it's
Yeah.
not prominent
This
enough.
is a black neck band, and I think the other 1792 is a red neck band.
no, I don't think so. I think
I,
that-
that's it.
I don't even think it's that. I wish we'd brought the other one down here and we could have talked more about this and
Yeah.
given these guys the advice that they need to hear.
right.
Yeah, there needs to be a little bit more.
And that's-
I'm different.
And a great example of how to do that properly is the bottle that Martin is holding, Rabbit Hole.
Well, but you know what? Yes, the labels are different colors. So are the Bardstown Bourbon Company. Their labels.
Yeah,
are
their
different
labels are
colors.
different colors,
But
but
I don't think the color is enough. I think people are going to associate all of them the same when the bottles are the same, whether the labels are different or not. And I think most bourbons that have multiple expressions use similar bottles.
well,
look at
Yeah.
Town Branch
because you want that
yes.
connection to
Now-
a certain degree.
Should they do something to differentiate? To make it more obvious this is single foolproof, maybe. But either way, it's still a great bourbon.
The only thing that looked any difference. This seems to be a darker.
Yeah, right, because
product.
it's foolproof.
That's
Yes,
cool.
Yeah.
Martin.
Martin.
Oh, so I on Francis's recommendation, I have poured some Rabbit Hole Cave Hill.
And this is your first time.
Yes, so this is
He's
a
a Rabbit Hole virgin.
it is a weeded
longer.
bourbon.
No longer. That's right.
Yes,
So yeah, the mash bill is on the side here, very helpful.
which I love it because
Oh,
that is
The
so
last
helpful.
time I drank it, I did not even look at that. Really?
So yes, 70 corn, 10 malted wheat,
Malted. Okay.
10 malted barley, and 10 honey malted barley.
Well, I be
Right.
So it's
dang.
got a little double barley there with some honey and 10% wheat,
right.
which
And no rye.
no
which
rye.
generally with wheat you don't have rye.
so that means sweet.
Well, there's no
Yes.
doubt about that because I did it last episode.
But
and
it's
it
not
was-
cloyingly sweet. Like
well,
it's
that
close.
might deserve
It's
a word
close.
boner.
Oh,
On
I don't know about
cloying.
that.
Cloying is a good word.
You think
though.
that's a word boner?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm
I'll give
boner.
you that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a
Um,
good word.
Have you ever had a Jack Daniel's honey bourbon or honey?
No, but I've
whiskey?
had the not.
I
That is cloyingly sweet.
Well, I have had it because my sister works for Brown Foreman, and that's one of the things she gifted us a couple times. So I have tried it. Don't have any more of it anyway. But you're right. It is and I'm being kind here. It is an attempt to work for a niche consumer that loves that quote unquote sweet drink that's what's been
Yes.
termed as the Pepsi generation. I don't like that because it
yeah,
is effective.
I mean, and I have long maintained, and we've discussed this ad nauseum on the episodes, that the consumption of soft drinks skews your
Yes.
palate
well,
to sweetness,
I think yeah.
and I don't think that's where Cave Hill, Rabbit Hole is going, but it is very sweet.
See, I don't think it's overpowering like you seem to think, but that to me, that cloyingness would be more
Oh
like.
man, he's just going there.
Yeah, I am. Well, because I think I've got a perfect example of it that this does not fit.
Bring it on, preach it, brother.
The smoked maple Knob Creek.
Oh well, yeah, which is by definition meant that way.
Yes, that is cloyingly sweet.
It is.
It's good.
If you
But you got to be in the right mood
it's
for
been
it.
marketed accordingly, so you don't.
It's
you're
my breakfast bourbon.
You're not going to be surprised by that. You know that's what you're going to get with that, and if that's what you want, God bless you.
Well,
It's a thing.
Brother Andrew laughs, but I mean, it makes me think of sausage and pancakes whenever I open it up.
I
This- the
still don't
very
understand.
first-
So when is the differentiate? When do you switch from your breakfast bourbon to your brunch bourbon?
Yeah,
somewhere where you
mid-
get double vision,
mid morning.
Yeah.
This and I'm hesitant to go and bang it too hard because we still would love to have Rabbit Hole as a sponsor.
It does describe us probably better than
Yes, it
at
does.
least nomenclaturally.
Oh my gosh,
It
we've
really
used the
is-
words rabbit hole more than any other phrase on
Absolutely,
this
because
show.
That's where we go. I mean,
But
that's just
my,
our thing.
my first very initial, just like bam, right up front. It reminds me of my favorite. What's the term? Lollipop or
Yeah.
sucker? I mean, we call them suckers here.
Yeah, lollipops. Yeah, that's
Dum
fair.
Dums. Remember
Dum Dums, yes. Dum Dums,
Oh,
yes.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean that's.
So it was as sweet as like almost like a
One of the
root
root
beer
beers.
Dum
Yes, the
Dums.
root beer. Yes.
Oh, okay.
the root beer Dum Dums.
Yeah,
Now,
there's some truth to that. Yeah.
As you go through it now, it's not as sweet down the road, but that was that first impression. Is like, whoo, this is really sweet.
So
Was
this
that
is a-
before it bloomed?
Yes, I think
Okay.
so. I mean,
Was you-
and I'm not sure if it's coming from the honey that's woven into that malted barley or what, but I mean, I guess I'd have to try some of the other expressions of rabbit
Well,
hole
and
Yes.
that's,
and
that's
see how
correct.
they vary it. But I think if you use this honey barley, then it would be good to balance it with some rye rather
Well,
than adding wheat
have
because
we-
it's just doubling up.
And they
on
do have a
sweet.
high rye bourbon,
I was
or,
gonna say,
or a bourbon with rye. In it.
Yeah.
I was to say because this is the only version of Rabbit Hole we've tried
I believe
here
so.
on the show.
show.
Yes.
Yeah,
We may have had more at Bourbon
I was
Fest.
about to say the
Now,
same
see,
thing.
this lays us out a strategy for Bourbon Fest
Oh, this is
because
true because
Bourbon Fest last year we just like shotgunned it.
well,
we
we
did.
didn't
We
know
just
any
tried
better.
everything.
Well, and Andre was not there, but we've got him set down.
Oh yes,
That's right. This
yes.
is the Bourbon Fest virgin here.
He's
because
going with us next
because
September.
we've
We
already
have our tickets.
That's right, because we've got the tickets already. Cajun, God bless him, has already purchased those set aside. So, folks, by the time the fall comes around, we're going to really be
Oh,
able
yeah.
to do Bourbon Fest well. And
We'll be discriminating.
we'll
and
understand
We'll be able to like.
so much more. You know,
You know what I want to do for Bourbon Fest?
please tell us.
I want. So, are you done with talking about rabbit
Well,
hole?
I just say I want to try some of the other expressions
Yes.
at
Yes.
Bourbon Fest and question then. Okay, how does this mash bill differ from the Cave Hill?
And we really need to talk to them about becoming sponsors.
Well, before we move on to our itinerary at Bourbon Fest, the one question from your analysis: how many licks does it take to get to the center of the bourbon?
Ooh, That's good.
a one.
That's really
a
good.
two, a three.
Three.
Unfortunately, Brother Andre, I'm not able to come up off. I've had too many bourbons, I guess, to come up with a sexual innuendo that works with that.
Just work the tongue.
I'm
So-
stunned, sir, because you are usually very good at that.
I mean,
I
not as
am-
good as
I am-
Cajun.
Not as good as Cajun,
I
not as good as
understand.
Well, but
Spirit
Cajun is
Store.
more in your face, and you are more subtle.
I like to do subtle sexual
Yes.
innuendo.
Double
So
entendre is your
yes,
Yes.
So,
Yeah, if
Yes.
you can pull that one off, yeah, you're there.
so
Yes.
but I appreciate you doing the volleyball setting for me, pop it up in the air. But unfortunately, I've only just smacked it into the net,
so
we
no
don't
spike for you.
we don't get a point there.
Yeah.
All
But
right.
I appreciate the lick setup.
All right.
Because
Robert,
anytime you can get a lick in, that's good.
all right. Robert, you were saying about the Bourbon Fest.
So at Bourbon Fest, I really think what we should consider doing is investing in one of the handheld Tascams. For reporters use them constantly for face-to-face interviews.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
And I really think that we should go around and wherever we can, especially to the places where we've talked to people before,
Yeah.
like Copper and Kings. We need to
Yeah.
make some inroads at Rabbit
Stephen
Hole.
Beam,
Stephen Beam.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. Anybody? Well, half of them,
Bourbon Scout.
Francis
Stephen
related
Conte.
to, so
Yeah,
we got an in there.
But
Well,
start
yeah.
recording some things.
But start
with their
record-
permission.
Yeah, but with their permission, hey, can I talk to you for just a few minutes for our podcast? And if we go somewhere you don't want to go, we'll delete it, whatever. But just want to spend a few minutes with you and talk
Well,
to you about your
Robert, you
bourbon.
We got a
You
whole
may be a
series of
genius.
hooper jubes right
Well,
there.
I think that's the sort of thing that either we put in a hoopajube or we publish immediately at the because we can do that. We don't
I
have to,
think stitching that together as a later episode, giving
or
you,
stitching it
giving
together.
you some latitude to stitch all those pieces together
Yeah.
with little introductory bumpers
Yes,
and letting you just run with it. I'm all for.
I would agree. I think that
I think this would also
one
be
of- yeah, because we never truly captured the spirit of the Bourbon Fest that
No.
we experienced.
Oh, and that
We
long
talked with-
conversation we had with the fellow that was taking pictures.
Oh, yeah, that
we
would've been
could
perfect.
So
every
awesomely-
single
I would
place
love
that
to
we
have published that
stopped,
whole discussion.
we would love to be able to capture some of those because they were just amazing. And,
Right.
and ideally, each of our experiences were similar, but not exactly the
and
same.
we probably couldn't get a whole lot of it done on Saturday because that's the busiest day.
That's right.
But and ideally we'd have two,
Yeah.
so that we could just have two different sets of interviews going on throughout the day. We do
Any
a
kind of
bunch on
recorder.
Friday and we do a bunch on Sunday. And if we can on Saturday, great. But we wouldn't necessarily expect to get a whole lot of.
That's-
Do the
But
best
that's-
you
maybe we interview other people.
Yes, I mean just whatever interviews you can get
Yes, I mean
with any recording device you have.
exactly.
Yeah, to
Just
speak
get-
on the virtues of
But
bourbon.
I mean, I would be very much willing to, Robert, just let you run with that as a completely separate episode you put together later. Like, don't even worry about it that weekend. Just get the interviews, get the comments
Mhm.
recorded, and then later you stitch it together any way you think.
drop it whenever
and
we
then
want
just
to.
and exactly, just drop it. as
If
a-
we ever
as
Give
a
our
Robert
listeners
special.
a treat they can anticipate with a great
And-
tease.
And just this awesome, we could do a Bourbon Fest episode like we did last time with our general impressions.
we will.
Right.
I'm
Probably
sure,
there.
Yeah.
But then a special episode that you just put down later with these interviews, we can tease that
Mhm.
all down the line, and you just put it together as you feel fit. I'm so for that. I absolutely support you 100%.
We're all
I
there
think
with you.
I think it would also if we really get serious about launching a Snakes and Otters bourbon podcast.
Yeah, we've talked about that, listeners, quite
which
a bit actually.
is
yeah.
basically just taking all of our bourbon breaks and at least initially breaking them out.
20-minute
publish,
hits, yeah.
or 40-minute hits, depending.
Well, we've talked more on this episode about bourbon than our quote.
Yeah, well, that's not uncommon so
Not
far.
quite.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
quite.
yeah.
We're still mostly quote.
Yeah,
We're still mostly. Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
He looks at the. He looks at the
I don't know.
timer.
Well, but we started the bourbon break and then we diverged and we had to restart it. So maybe.
Damn, we went down
Well,
a
I
rabbit
mean,
hole, did we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we rabbit holed our rabbit hole.
But I think something like that would also be good for something like that if we wanted to do a second podcast based on that. Because we could take all of these bourbon breaks, and we've got approximately 200 of them because we haven't talked about bourbon in every single episode. Bourbon break did not become a thing until many episodes in.
Right. I'm curious where we kind of decided.
Mrs. Robert is going to tell us. The second episode we did not talk about bourbon at all.
I mean, it's not that we weren't drinking in every episode.
That's very,
Right.
very, very fair on your part there, Mark. You're exactly
Yes.
right.
I mean, full disclosure.
Yeah, that's
Full
right.
disclosure.
We just decided.
I'm a
that-
big fan of transparency.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
being a
Except
former
on cookies.
listener, I can tell you I can tell which episodes were recorded when, because sometimes the tongues are a little more free on some of the later recorded episodes.
Yeah, you can see that. I'll fully confess to that
Guilty.
one. Yeah, we're
Yeah,
kind of there.
absolutely.
There's another tongue reference that you totally missed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
So, but yes, I think investing in a couple of those handheld recorders
Well, let's
would be a good idea.
Let's have a
Let's be
discussion.
thinking about that, because certainly
Yeah.
the Imperator would be down with that.
Yeah,
Yes.
because he's our tech guy in many respects, our hardware guy. We'll continue to have that discussion after
yes.
the fact.
Tascam
This-
has several, and I think they're relatively inexpensive.
Yeah, I mean
But any sort of handheld recorder will work. So
Yeah. Well, I'd like to get something that is, I don't want to lower our production standards.
No,
Yeah.
no,
is
we
the thing.
finally arrived. Let's
Yes.
kind of stick with at least that.
Exactly.
Anyway, bring us back, Robert.
So, anyways, back to the quote. I will reread the quote. Normally, in the past, this would be when Robert brings it home, but that's not the way. Where
hammers at home.
hammers it home with, bringing disparate quotes into one. But we're doing one quote still, even though there's only four of us. So, true patriotism hates injustice in its own land more than anywhere else. I like this one. I didn't do this at the beginning like we usually do, where the host talks about why they like their quote, because it kind of just went into your guys' discussion. I like this quote for a lot of reasons. First of all, I love the patriotism angle because I love of country. Love of country. Everybody should be able to love their country.
Patriotism gives a bad rap these days.
It does, because they confuse it with nationalism and some of the worst
Yes.
examples
The,
of
the,
people.
the anti-international impulse.
Yeah,
It's like, that's not fair.
no, it's
Patriotism
not.
is a great thing.
Patriotism is loving your country, warts and all,
And
as
its
Brother
people.
Andre said,
And its people.
and its people, all of its
All
of
of
people.
the people.
Especially this country. We're a freaking melting pot, for God's sake.
Yeah, I like the analysis of the salad bowl, because we retain our own ethnic diversities, but we are all next to each other.
Yes, and that's a great analogy, and that's one of the things that I despise about the current way things are going.
Zeitgeist.
Zeitgeist. Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Word
yes.
boner.
There's a
Boner.
hit,
Yeah, word. Oh, that's definitely a word boner. Where it's almost like it's gotten to the point where, well, you can't make Mexican food. You're not Mexican. You shouldn't even like that because you're appropriating their culture. No, I'm enjoying
the culture.
I'm not only just enjoying it, but I am glorifying it. I am saying great things about it because I choose to enjoy something that is different than my own. To me, that's what diversity really means. And it's not that we all have distinct things that all are pigeonholed into their own little boxes. The boxes, the contents should be able to mix freely because that's how culture grows.
Yeah, it's just like in business. Best practices is a very politically correct way of saying, I'm going to steal the very best of what I see and
Absolutely.
copy it.
And that's what America has done.
And that's what we've done with our culture.
Right. Our culture is a great mishmash of every other country that came here.
Yeah.
You know?
I finally got a source on this. Clarence Darrow's quotation that we've been talking about is just one of his most famous. It was originated in his book Why I Am an Agnostic and Other Essays, published in 1899.
Wow, this is early.
I know, because we have been kind of attributing to him things from World War I in the 1920s that would
Yeah.
not be appropriate for this.
So
The War of
this is-
1812 is more appropriate.
This is pre-Teddy Roosevelt. This is McKinley
Yeah.
time. This
Yeah,
is the time
well,
McKinley
this is
time.
Spanish-American War.
Spanish-American War. I was about to say that. Yeah.
So that's the context, Spanish-American War.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's talking about here. Is where why aren't we doing that? Or worse, we shouldn't be messing with that because we're effed up here.
Well, if you want to, I'd say that probably maybe what he might have been talking about is, we've got this thing called the Monroe Doctrine.
That is very appropriate.
And
for this.
we're pretty solid on that.
Well, yeah.
You don't come messing over here. And yet what do? we go and acquire an empire from Spain,
He's pointing out our hypocrisy then.
and he's pointing out our hypocrisy.
I
And
think
you know,
the truth.
that's kind of where I was going. Why I like this, because, and we kind of hinted around this earlier, especially Brother Andre. You know, you weren't saying it directly, but, and I think I said this at the beginning too, is that if it's an injustice, and you see that it's an injustice, you know, there's one thing. It's different. You know, that saying, okay, I recognize this is an injustice, and I'm okay with it here versus not with, or not okay with it here, but I'm okay with it there versus I don't recognize that something is an injustice. Because the quote here is, yeah, I think it implies, yes, you see an injustice and you should be outraged, but you should especially be outraged here. And you have to ask the question, why? And
Yeah.
why should you be
Yeah.
more outraged and hate it more here? Because here, it affects not just your country, but ultimately it affects you.
I
Okay.
know mine, and mine knows me.
Yes.
Oh, very,
yes,
very
very,
well,
very
sir.
good. Because
Yes,
we are
right.
recording this on Good Shepherd Sunday.
That's
Very
right,
good.
and that's exactly the quotation. Yeah.
And if you're going to be a patriot, you want, to me, being a patriot is caritas at the national level.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Continue.
Caritas
I'll let you
being
run with that.
wanting the best for the other for the sake of the other. I want the best for my country for the sake of my country, not for what I can get out of my country, right? John Kennedy asked not what you can
absolutely.
do for your country, but what you can do for
That
your.
is exactly the core of what he's talking
Yes.
about. That's right.
That is exactly it. And I think that anytime you are okay, either not necessarily okay, because I don't think he's necessarily implying it's okay if injustice happens elsewhere, but if you, in any way, if you are any less, well, to me, if you're any less outraged by an injustice anywhere, that's bad, because any differentiation in
Response.
not response, any differentiation in the valuation of an
Okay.
injustice,
All right. Yeah.
you know,
Uh-huh.
the weight you give it.
Right.
And you know, the only difference there should be in weight should be in terms of impact and how heinous an injustice might be.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you give any different kind of weight to an injustice simply because it happens far away, or just anything in general,
Yeah.
in quality or in kind, you know, whatever.
It's like driving a really large car. Everything that happens is way out there.
Yes,
Whereas, you drive a small car, everything happens like right up by the windshield.
absolutely. That is
So-
very
Okay.
true.
Evil
So I mean
is
that's
evil.
that's a a PJ. So
Well, evil
You
is
know.
still evil in anybody's name. That's Don Henley, but that's there's much
The
truth.
great
in what we're talking
voice
about
for Don Henley.
right,
here. Yeah,
right,
absolutely. Yeah.
The great prophet Don Henley.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, one of the greatest lyricists of our time.
Absolutely.
I'll totally go
So
with that.
I mean, yeah, I mean that's what he's calling out. He is calling out the idea of, well, you're hollering about something that's happening in the Tsar and the Empire of Russia, but we've got all these things right here that are an injustice. I think my poke in the balloon, my pin in the balloon of Darrow is, the definition of injustice gets very elastic with some people.
And that is a problem, and I think that will always be a problem.
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far. I'd say that injustice is so enormous that you have to pick and choose. I think that's what you're talking about here, is he's picking and choosing the injustice, because trust me, there's no shortage.
Well, I mean, I think he's being very broad with injustice.
I don't
He's
know that
like,
I'd go that far. I would not, because
This injustice.
I'm
is so,
sure there is
but-
injustice out here. He's simply picking and choosing that which he calls out. But
Well, I think the picking and choosing
I
is
don't.
what he's
I-
calling
well,
out.
well, that's what I'm saying is that
Yeah.
I don't think that anything that you're saying he's being elastic about, it probably damn well is an injustice.
It probably at his time, but I mean,
Well, I
not
understand
to,
exactly.
Not to say that people aren't treated unfairly today, but
Is somebody being treated unfairly truly an injustice, or is it just you're being an asshole?
yeah, I mean,
Yes.
today
Or is being
like,
an asshole an injustice?
right. I mean, I would say no. If the law says everyone's equal, which we kind of have gotten to that point of,
Yeah. Well.
the law says you're equal. No matter what color you
Some are
are,
more
you
equal
can,
than others.
you
that
can-
is still true.
In
yes.
1899, damn straight.
It's
Yeah.
not. It's not.
Yeah.
I mean, I fully, absolutely with him on,
Yeah, absolutely.
1899 is not today. But
well, even
today,
it's not entirely true.
you could say, the law says no matter what color you are, you can get a mortgage loan. No matter what color you are, you can buy in any neighborhood. Things are a lot more even today. What are people outraged about today is, hey, I've decided to wear a wig and lipstick. I need to go in the women's locker room. Is that really an injustice? That someone gets upset that I haven't shaved my legs and I'm a guy and I'm wearing a wig, I should be able to go in the women's
Or you
locker
just let your
room.
hair grow long.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
or
the
you're playing
things
on
we
the girls'
see,
basketball team.
or to take it out of that realm of, well, I took out $100,000 in student loans to get a degree in French literature. Is that an injustice that you're against the government forgiving my loans? So I think that's
Well,
this
Loans,
injustice we have to be
just to make
careful
sure
with.
a point is clearly stated, loans are never forgiven. They're just paid by others.
Well,
exactly.
And so there's a couple of things on that. Gosh, there's so many things that have just said that I want to respond to. So, but trying and going in reverse order if I can. So generally, when you're talking about federal loans, the government's already paid that money. Okay. So nobody is actually transferring that debt currently. That debt was already paid by people 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago.
With the
okay?
expectation that those
Yeah. No, I get that. I get that. What we're talking about now is negating the revenue stream that comes from that. Okay, which I'm not saying is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just pointing out we're not really transferring debt right now. We transfer the debt, in the past.
But
Just saying.
generally, if you take a loan, pay it.
No, right. No,
I'm expected to pay mine.
That is a principle.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm not. That's not the part that I'm commenting on.
PLE.
Right.
Not
Yeah,
PLL.
I'm just trying to point out that a lot of the memes they talk about, it's not. You're not forgiving the debt, as Andre says. You're not forgiving the debt. You're transferring the debt. Well, the debt was kind of already transferred, but whatever. I get that.
But it's not an injustice to sit here and say,
yes,
I'm having trouble paying these loans. Why isn't the government doing something for me? That's not an injustice.
The real injustice in that. The real injustice in that is loaning some 18-year-old kid $100,000 or $200,000 to get a degree in French
when
literature.
they have no idea what
Yes,
they're
I would submit.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost predatory.
It is.
Well, I mean, you build these kids up with this idea of, oh, chase this dream.
No.
It's like, no, dude,
nope.
that's not a dream that goes anywhere. Okay.
I totally disagree in most of that, only because it is not. The injustice is the system that that teaches them that you have to pay me this much money to get that. I go back even further, take it a step back further, is the university system that charges that much money
absolutely.
to get what basically you're preying upon the dreams.
Well, that's
which
that was my point.
Yeah, which should be a just dream, that wanting to have something that you can do better with yourself. Did they make the right choice with French literature? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on what you want to do with it. Nevertheless,
it's not so much what you want to do with it as what
can
able
you do
to
with
do.
it?
Well, I mean,
there.
You can always teach.
There has to be a realism to.
Well, and that's my point.
So I mean, there's a lot of injustice around.
Are you supporting a system that is enormously bloated and far into injustice, because it should not cost that much?
Well,
for something that is, in my opinion, a basic human right: the ability not to achieve, but the ability to attempt.
Well,
to achieve higher education.
There's a lot of issues going on here. So you could make a lot of different arguments about so many points here. So and this I think is a more fundamental issue.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about, well, how useful is it? Higher education should not have a monetary use Okay.
Okay.
It's an absolute. Like if I wanted to get an education, because there was a time that was predominantly the standard for higher education was that you learn for the sake of learning. Now,
exactly.
now
You're suggesting that we are at a point where the only thing higher education of value is that which has utility.
yes, higher
associated with it.
education turned into, especially during our lifetime,
Yeah.
because that's when the federal government started getting really involved in education,
Right.
and that's when the costs soared
Right.
to beyond. I mean, so just to give you an example, our first semester at Bellarmine Martin
Yes.
was $1,735 for the semester, the entire semester.
Yes, if you were a
full-time undergrad,
undergrad that was not living on campus.
it was $1,735.
What year was that?
1984 to 1985.
Adjusted for inflation, guess what that would be today?
I don't know, but
It ain't where it is today, though.
But my daughter, when she went to Bellarmine, she started in 2015. So approximately 30 years later. One credit hour cost more than our entire first semester. That is beyond inflation.
Okay.
Agreed.
Now, but the whole idea, though, that education is designed to do one thing, and that is turn out people who are employable. That's part of the problem.
Yeah, that's utility.
That's the utility. That's part of the problem. And so that's the system we have built. But now you're giving out student loans and saying, yeah, I don't care what you study. I mean, that's pretty much always been the case. But then because there was so much government money and everybody was being encouraged to go to college.
Yes.
And study
part of it.
All these different things that really are they're things that may or may not have value, like, whether it be gender studies, women's studies, some ethnic studies.
Those are often the ones that are
those are the stereotypes, okay?
Right.
And I only point those out because those are the most obviously recognized. But you could make the same argument about, well, really, how much work is there for somebody who studies archaeology? There's some, but is there a lot? How much work is there for somebody who studies?
If you dig into it, you can get there.
Ooh.
That's
That's not a word boner, but that's our boner. That's close to it.
He who would pun would pick a pocket.
Yeah,
Yes, he would.
That's a word. I love that.
But so you have this explosion of people going to college and studying things that are not marketable, but that's what your entire system is built on. And that's what the entire loan system is built on. It's presuming you're going to get a job that can repay it. So then you start loaning money to all these people who are not going to be able to get jobs as anything other than a Starbucks barista.
Well, I don't know if the fact is still true, but when I was going through college, graduated in 94, the majority of people leaving college did not work in what they studied. So, if you got a degree in French literature, maybe you ended up in a marketing position or sales. I got a degree in corporate and communications, and I ended up in the sales position.
That's kind of corporate communications. I mean, that to me, that's tangential.
Well, that was before the there was there was a definite trend of major explosion.
Well,
of again, taking things where you used to get a business degree and then splitting that off into another major and then another major and then another and another and another.
Well, as long as people don't care that your French literature degree still gets you into a door, then it's not a problem. But it's when that changes.
Doors, yeah.
Well, see, that's what's changed. Is it used to be a 4-year degree at a decent school is all you need, and most employers will give you a fair shake, and you can find your way into something.
But
and
that
you're
was
right, as Andre said, it may not be where you started. It certainly ain't in French literature, but it gets you in the door.
But how many? Yeah, but I would say that was to Martin's point. That was very much before there was an explosion.
That's right. Something has changed because sooner or later the employers became more discriminating, saying, nah, your French literature degree ain't cutting it for me.
Which in many ways is pretty dumb because, as we all know, almost everything we need to know about our jobs, we learned on the job.
That's right.
Yeah, but
I mean, not entirely because, you and I are in very technical fields.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you
but
get into
still,
mathematics.
I learned
science.
most of what I know on. Well, actually, I didn't get a business. I didn't
definitely
yet
on
get
the
a
job.
degree in computer science. So everything I know about my job, I learned.
Yeah.
On the
Oh,
job.
absolutely. But you know, Bellarmine had a reputation
Yes. Yes.
of okay, you know, accounting degrees,
Nursing.
nursing,
Their MBA program.
the MBA. So I mean, there was a lane that Bellarmine grads were in,
The
and
school itself spoke for you.
while it was well rounded, it was still, you know, they were turning out accountants, they were turning out nurses,
So you can.
and that was a strength you knew.
So even if you got a Bellarmine degree in French literature, which they didn't offer, but we'll say they did, just by the name Bellarmine, you got a consideration. Shall we say privilege?
I think no,
No.
because I think you walked out in the world with a French literature degree. Okay, well, your only avenue now is grad school, and you
Or
better
teaching.
and you're headed towards
Not-
teaching.
Not necessarily. If it's a good school, you might learn more about French literature than anything else, but you learned critical thinking skills.
Well, and that's
Yeah.
what Bellarmine does.
And
That's
learning
in the
skills.
liberal arts environment, yeah. That's
Bellarmine
that's
was
what I'm trying to say.
fantastic at that.
Yeah.
A good
that
school
but
doesn't teach
Bellarmine
you what
says
to
its
think,
own
but
thing.
how to think.
Well, yes, and
Bellarmine
again,
brings that with it.
Bellarmine absolutely, but I think it's true for all of us, given the time we graduated college. Even Brother Andre, who was only 5 years behind us,
Right.
behind me, 6 years behind
Me.
Martin, 7 years behind you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so that is not. It didn't change that much in that time frame.
Yeah.
And that is that if you went out and you got a degree, say I wanted to apply at KFC, which is now Yum, and to work, in their business, in the office, in sales and marketing, whatever. My degree needed to be related to the job I was applying to. Like I could not go to
Yep.
Arthur Anderson and apply and get a job with a French literature degree. Okay.
Right.
And nobody expected anything differently. And that's still the structure. Right?
Yeah.
It may not be exact, but I mean, the structure is still. But the kids going to school and borrowing all this money, they're getting degrees and expecting to getting jobs. I think high-paying jobs that are totally unrelated to their degree, or finding out that there are no jobs related to their degree. That's part of the injustice, is that we are not serving these kids in a good way. We're not saying, hey, you're about to go, in the case of Bellarmine, could be $250,000 in debt. Now, granted, Bellarmine, you don't borrow all of the money because they give you a crap ton of financial aid. Even if, unlike now, my son, the boy, as I like to call him, he got a full ride, including room and board, based on his academic skills. He earned it through his skills.
Go Knights.
Go Knights.
That's right.
Swords up.
Right.
Martin and I both at the same time did the swords up motion. That's awesome. So, but still, you're going to spend quite a bit of money. You might spend, $100,000 on that education. Nobody is stopping and saying to those kids, what job are you angling for? Because that's the system that will allow you to pay this back.
I think that's the gap, and a big part of it. A lot of schools go out and encourage kids, hey, you need to come here. Well, you really don't need to go to a school 8 states away.
Right. You don't need to go to Harvard because you aren't smart enough. You need to go to, Kentucky State. Not that dumb people go to Kentucky State. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But it's not Harvard.
But there's this thing that gets kind of, what's the right word?
Perception.
Perpetuated.
Perpetuated, yes.
That, it's a much better experience if you go to Illinois or California or Massachusetts. It's like, look, there's nothing wrong with state school.
Absolutely.
There is nothing wrong with state school.
Agreed. Absolutely.
Go local. For undergrad, that could be the best advice you've ever heard, young person. go local for undergrad.
Absolutely. And do now, granted, I know my son got the full ride. This is going to sound like it's coming from a very privileged position, but again, he earned it.
Correct.
He worked hard for it. He is incredibly smart. So he gets to live on campus. But even so, I would want him to live on campus, even though he is local. He could drive to school every day.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go to another city to get the campus experience. Yes, it costs more. But again,
But even if you don't get the campus experience for undergrad, go local.
yes,
I'll
you don't
challenge
have
that.
to
I
do
don't
that.
even think undergrad matters. I'll challenge each one of you sitting here. Tell me what school your personal physician attended, your attorney, your accountant. Can you tell me?
It very much depends on what you go into. But yes, I mean, U of L School of Law is excellent. UK School of Law is excellent.
The only accountant I know that personally went to Bellarmine.
Yeah.
Actually, graduated around the time you did.
Okay.
But-
So I mean, we don't use those criteria to evaluate those that we hire to work for us.
In here,
Well,
you're right. We don't round these
Not
parts.
not after they've been in the workforce. It's getting that first job though.
Yeah.
Getting that first job.
Let me give where this is coming from is, Brother Andre, you don't know my best man at my wedding, Gregor Mendel, we call him.
Yes.
Great with peas, I hear.
Yes.
Yes, he is.
And
Yes.
and like no kidding, he is a molecular geneticist.
He is mucking about with the stuff of life. Scares the crap out of all of us.
He runs a lab at NIH, National Institutes of Health, and he would tell you, every day of the week and twice on Sunday, go local for undergrad,
Mhm.
then go from there.
Yeah.
He is a U of L undergrad, but Vanderbilt for his PhD.
See, if you would have asked me for 100 years, where do you go from molecular engineer or genetic engineering, Vanderbilt wouldn't have landed on the list.
I mean,
Yeah,
so
but once you get into that,
I mean, when you
know.
think about again, a kid from Shively, your dreams are possible, kids, but you have to have realism about the dream, and you don't have to go to that school that guy's telling you to go to in, Georgia or Connecticut or whatever to get there.
Therefore,
You can go local.
you are suggesting the entire university recruitment system on the academic side
There's a
is-
huge part of it.
is
That's a huge.
fatally
It's very corrupt.
corrupt.
And not
Yes.
corrupt in the sense that somebody's lining their pockets. It's corrupt and it doesn't serve their customers. And the
Right.
customers are the kids that go to school.
Yeah. I mean,
And
and
It
I
takes
get it.
advantage of those
Their
who do
job
not
is to
know.
get undergrads into the school.
Yes.
But at some point, you have to be honest with a kid
There's no,
that
there's no morality there. It sounds
you're
like.
in Massachusetts or whatever, and you're interviewing a kid from Kentucky, and you got to say, "Hey, it's cool. You can go local, and then come back and see us for graduate school."
But
Wow.
After you've gone through the cursus honorum and proved you're worth a
Yeah.
damn.
You know what? Just for the Latin.
Word boner.
Yeah.
I have a
Uh,
sense that we've way gone over.
Oh my gosh, have we gone way over? But you know what? This has been one of the
Oh,
best
crap.
discussions, and we haven't even really scratched some of the things I would have loved to have talked about. We spent probably almost the entire post bourbon break on the injustice that is student loans.
Yeah.
We still have to talk about the dude in the locker room.
Let's
let-
go on.
That's an
Skip a-
entirely yeah.
skip
Let's
a bit,
let's-
brother.
Let's skip that one.
We'll leave that one for Riley Gaines.
Yeah. So I do want to take a minute here to kind of wrap up.
You're the captain?
Because I'm the captain and I'm the hammer, and this is my job. We got rabbit holed with the student loans, but I think what we could say about that really is endemic to what Darrow is talking about, because there's so many injustices in that system, and I think what it boils back to is we saw this happening in like the late aughts and the 2010s, and certainly now into the 2020s. But I think it began even longer ago into the 1990s, because I think it begins with the participation trophy culture.
Yep.
Because those kids who got a participation trophy are the ones that are complaining the most about not being able to pay back their student loans, because they were told that you can do anything and you're great at it.
Yep.
And that's an injustice, because you are not doing
Not-
anybody any good.
Yes. You're not telling people how the world really works.
Yeah,
That's why we
it-
keep
it-
score.
Right. And I don't want to tell anybody they should tell their kids you suck,
Yeah. I mean,
because you shouldn't.
You don't
Yeah,
tell
I
them
mean-
suck. They're great.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
you don't tell them,
yeah,
you're
you're a
awesome.
loser. It's not that you're a loser. It's just,
It's like,
this
that's
is,
not where your best
yeah,
skills are. Do you want to keep playing it? Okay, fine. You can keep playing that sport. I don't care. But you're not going to get a walk-on position, at the University of Michigan football team because you are 5'2" and you weigh 120 pounds. You are not getting on that team.
Your
Not
name ain't
not even
Rudy.
as the kicker.
you're not headed to the NFL.
Right, and you are definitely not heading. But it's the same kind of thing, and that maybe that's a more of an impersonal injustice. But I think what that speaks to is, and maybe that's what Darrow's talking about, is that we need to recognize the injustices that are going on at home. It's not so much that it's my country or nothing, my way or the highway, however you want to put it. Maybe it's that open up your eyes to see what's going on around you. Because you were saying, Martin, take care of what's wrong at home first.
Yeah.
Well, prior to that, you got to open up your eyes. You
Yeah.
got to know what's going wrong, what's unjust here at home, and that's part of the problem I think with the nationalist movements is that they refuse to see what's wrong, and you have to be able to see it everywhere. I mean, it's a very Catholic position, right?
Yes.
Is that if it's injustice there, it's unjust here. If it's unjust here, it's unjust over
Yeah.
there. There because the implication is that if it's wrong, it's wrong.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
always wrong.
I'm very much on face value, very much where Darrow is.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. You can speak out against shit that happens other places, but shit happens here too. And just my pushback is just let's not let the definition of injustice get so big that it has no meaning.
Right. And I think that is very fair. I think that is very fair because everything now has become a matter of
Everything's an injustice. Again, I call you her or him or whatever, and you freak out because your preferred pronouns are Zim or Zer or whatever. That's not really an injustice.
Right. Especially if I've never met you before.
Exactly. It's like, well, okay.
Oh, I have a real problem with the recently, and I granted all words were made up at one point. I get that.
Yes.
But anyway, that's entirely
right. There's an accepted usage. It's not an injustice. Like the kid I saw at the grocery store last night with plastic ears that stuck out of her hair that were pointed and made her look like an elf from the Ring series. If I think you're a weirdo, that's not an injustice.
Right, because yes,
I mean that's my opinion. You can say, okay, well, I don't care about your opinion.
Stupid is as stupid does.
I'm going
Mrs.
to wear
Blue.
these ears and look like Legolas. Okay,
well, and
great, look like Legolas. You're still a weirdo.
And I think that maybe we really need to make this the last thing. And as captain, I can do that.
Yes, go ahead.
And also because I control the board, I can mute you guys. That's a great point, though. That injustices are about acts on against other people
that deprive them of their fundamental rights.
Yes, to go back to my favorite phrase, that deprives them of their inherent dignity of the human person.
Yes, absolutely.
That is the core injustice, and that can be expressed in an infinite number of ways. What we think should not be considered injustice.
Hate speech.
Hate speech.
Yeah.
I mean, yes. I could say certain things that would be very hateful, but I don't know this should be illegal. I mean,
well, and then therein lies, I kind of think where this lands is, what's, where do you have redress and where do you not?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great point.
Yeah.
Why didn't you make that earlier?
Hurt feelings are not necessarily
are not
a
worth
launching pad for seeking redress under the.
Well, that's correct. Well,
Right.
if you, and this goes back to the power situation that I'm always railing against, if you're bloody wealthy to the point where you can take somebody to court because they called you weirdo because that you wore the Legolas ears in the grocery store and they didn't like you, they have the power over you. They have the ability to take you to court and bankrupt you because you can't defend yourself because most ordinary people cannot possibly do that.
Yeah.
You still have to pay a lawyer even to get it.
There's an entirely different episode there about unjust lawsuits and the right.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
yes.
That might be something for us to talk about. That's for sure.
Yes.
And winner pays and versus
Yeah.
defender pays.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Wow.
So well done, Robert. This
Yes,
is quite an episode.
Swing us back around.
Wow.
sir.
Yeah. We didn't even go anywhere near all the stuff we could have covered. So
Yeah, that's where we go.
What's next,
yeah,
Francis?
Francis, what's next?
We're gonna hoop-a-jew, boys. That's right.
Hoop-a-jew.
This is Andre's first hosted hoop-a-jew next episode. We're going to be at Andre's house for our very first time at his house.
Are
hosting.
we not?
Yes, yes.
I think it's his house next time.
I could swear that this is yours.
Okay, you're
Uh,
welcome.
I believe
Okay,
it's
great. I can't wait till you're
Andres.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
Studio A.
Studio A.
Studio A.
And it-
I'm almost by, yeah. And but we have decided we come up with something like I don't even know who came up with this, but it is so
It's Brother
It
Andre.
was Brother
It was
Andre.
yours, yeah, because we are decided. We talk a lot about pop culture. We talk a lot about movies. You know, it's one of our favorite stuff. Andre's the one that came up with the idea that says we're going to do a lightning round. We've never done anything like this before. That's the genius that Andre brings to this here. We're going to talk about what are our best movies by genre, and we're just going to nail the heck out of this all over the place.
I'm interested to see just what genres he comes up
That's
with.
right, because he's
Because
casting.
obviously it should be more than just drama, comedy.
He's
love
I'm
story,
sure
you know.
he will be very specific, and he will lead us where we need to go to
and
make
we
it.
might delve a little past the cinema. And
Oh.
one thing that I've noticed is we go down rabbit holes, as we've said.
Yeah, many times. Yeah,
And so I'm going to see if we can esoterically touch on many different subjects.
I love it.
Oh,
Absolutely.
wait.
Word boner.
Yeah, that's
For the esoteric.
well deserving. Well
Yes,
deserving.
yes.
So be here next episode, folks. This is going to be one for the record books.
We hope you enjoyed another pointless discussion of eternal questions. Remember, new episodes drop every second and fourth Friday at 6 a.m. Eastern, just in time for your morning commute. And every fifth Friday, we drop a special Hoopajube episode. Spread the word we are on all the major platforms, and leave us a review. That helps others find us. We're also on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, as well as our website, snakesandotters.com. Join us next time. Same snake time, same otter channel.